Hey everyone, I hope you're all having a fantastic day so far. Today, I want to talk about how I handle invoices when it comes to my outside of IR35 contracts. This is a really important discussion because it gives you a clear idea of how to methodically and process wise manage invoices. Now, a lot of people think that all you do is send through a PDF version of your invoice to the end client, and that's it, you get paid. And I'm sure you've heard many sort of like horror stories in relation to a lot of soloists or contractors or consultants not getting their money paid on time. Now, I'm the sort of person where, and my friend said this yesterday when I caught up with him, that I don't like to play with my money, even if it sounds ridiculous. Like, I don't want to miss a day. I've planned things a certain way. And of course, it makes sense to have contingencies, X, Y, and Z, but sometimes things can happen, okay? And your end client can't always see this. So you need to prep them and prepare them to ensure that you are getting paid on time. So I have a certain process that I follow. The first thing that I do is I ensure and make sure that all the activity that I'm doing, even if it's spontaneous, is tracked on my Outlook calendar. Okay, I do this for a specific reason. Why? When I started any sort of outside of IR35 contract or whatever it may be, there was a specific proposal that I wrote that highlighted key deliverables that needed to be achieved. And so this is the expectation of the end client from me in order to achieve. So I need to find ways to evidence this stuff. So I start off with my calendar, okay? This is a great way to log and remind me of what I've done in alignment to these specific things. Now, in addition to that, and I don't always do this, I have to admit, but it's a great exercise to do, is to essentially reflect and think about what did you do this week? Okay, three key lines. What went well and what didn't go well, and what can you improve on? What are your next steps? Okay, so those 3 to 5 different questions really help to ground you, and having that logged against a date and time is going to be really important rather than you trying to remember and all this kind of stuff there. So moving on from there, the second thing that I do is I use this tool called Toggl. Okay, it costs me £7 a month to basically track my activity, and I can track my activity in two ways. One of two ways. One, I can essentially use this sort of like screen recorder. It's not really a screen recorder, it's an activity recorder log that does it automatically on the computer. Okay, you log in and it connects to your desktop and all that kind of stuff there on your browser, and it will track what you're doing. Okay, I've used stuff like this before, like rescue time, which essentially helps me understand how I'm measuring how much time I'm using on different sort of applications. The other way is if you just do it manually. And this is where the calendar comes into play. I can quickly see what I've done throughout the day and log that stuff. Okay, categorize it a certain way, for specific contracts, whether it's billable or non-billable, etc., etc. Now, do I have to use this tool Toggl? No. I could use Notion to do this quite easily. But the reason I use Toggl is because it's a familiar tool that some consultants use, and it was recommended to me, through another consultant. And two, at the time when I started, I don't want to work out my template and tool on Notion, even though you can do it on Notion. I'll probably create something for that and provide it to you guys if you guys are interested in it. And so that's really helpful because the third thing I can do is produce a monthly report. And so this monthly report helped me understand specifically what activity I've done day to day, week to week, whatever it may be. Do I have to do it on this granular level? No. But what it does do is it provides assurance and accountability to the hiring manager, the end client, whatever it may be, that you are doing activities aligned to those proposals. They haven't told me to do this necessarily, and they may suggest this, so to speak, depending on who you're working for. But it's really good to do. It can feel long and annoying, but it's a really good tool because you can go back, use AI if you want to, and really interrogate the stuff that you've done to help you understand how you can articulate your value even more so. Okay. There's some other things I could talk about, but I don't want to sort of like distract from the main topic. So once I've done that, I align my activity from the reports to invoicing. Okay. And you can invoice in two different ways. The first way is, and this depends on how you've become a consultant for this end client. If you come through an agency, then the invoicing is most likely going to be done via a timesheet portal. If you've come independently, then you can either use Toggl to create invoicing and pay a bit more so that can be set up, or you can utilize the whole PDF thing, okay, and calculate what you've done week to week, day to day, etc., in terms of days if you want to. And usually you're going to charge based on a day, not an hourly thing. We're not doing hourly nonsense. We're doing days. Now, of course, there may be half days, there may be quarter days, or even 3/4 days. If you want to go to that level, that's totally up to you. But typically, it's days and half days for me. Okay, and you can work out what that looks like, but it needs to be sensible. And this is why you tracked it, so you don't have to second guess. Because if any auditing happens for whatever reason, you've got the backup. You've got this. Okay. So bear this stuff in mind. And before I continue, if you're not sure whether you can do this stuff and whether contracting or consulting is for you, then you can check out the survey that I've created. It's an assessment really rather than a survey. And it assesses you for a number of questions to see if you are in fact consulting or contracting ready. Okay. So if this is something you're interested in, then click on the link below to find out more information. So once this is done, the invoice I've produced, if I'm working purely through myself on no middle person, or if I am working through an agent, okay, then I will use the invoice or the self-remittance invoice. It's the same things. And I'll send that to my accountant. Okay. And what will happen is once I've sent that to my accountant, I also send them my business expenses. Now, of course, you can use loads of tools to track your business expenses. If you're using something like Starling does a great job of categorizing those different business expenses, or at least getting you to categorize those expenses once you are charged through that account. Tide does something similar, if I'm honest with you. I like the Starling effect, but Tide does something similar. If you are using a personal account, you may need to essentially export the expenses from your account, whether it's Nationwide, Halifax, NatWest, whatever it may be, and categorize that stuff and send that information over to your accountant so it's clear and concise, so they know exactly what your expenses are. And so once I've sent through my business expenses and my invoices, I ask them to basically tell me how much I can take out of my business account once I get paid at X date. And so that gives me a clear idea of how much corporation tax they've calculated for me based on what I've sent them. If I was to take out, let's say I take out £5,000 as an example, I know roughly 10% is going towards personal tax, and I put that money in a cash ISA, okay? Because obviously I can make additional interest on that, but then obviously use that money to pay HMRC or whatever it may be. So that gives me an idea of what I can withdraw. And I'm not always going to withdraw the maximum. That doesn't make sense. I'm going to withdraw a certain amount and keep a certain amount within there, just in case they have miscalculated something for whatever reason. I don't want no stress. I really don't want that. And so this helps me keep on track. Now, the final thing I forgot to say is for my approver, okay, the person who's going to sign off my invoice or timesheet or whatever it may be, I send them a calendar invite. I send them a calendar invite. And I send them in that calendar invite a day reminder to let them know, hey, you think about the fact that you need to sign my timesheet. Now, of course, if there are situations where there is a delay in signing a timesheet, or even getting your invoice approved, okay? Because you need to have some sort of response back in the form of an email or confirmation or whatever it may be, depending on how you've been set up. You have to politely but persistently follow up. This is not about, I feel bad, and no. Be on the phone, send them reminders, speak to your agent, clarify if there's a technical issue. Like, you need to get paid ASAP because they don't know your situation. They don't know your situation. And so it's very important that there is prompt payment and there is a rhythm for that. If they can pay their staff that, then they should adhere to the same responsibility to pay consultants or contractors in the same fashion, same rhythm. And sometimes there's a case of, if it's a timesheet, the timesheet approver doesn't necessarily have, maybe they're going on holiday and you both forgot. In those instances, the best scenario is to have a secondary approver on there who can approve your stuff, whether this is an invoice or whether this is via an agency. And if that isn't the case, then there's an opportunity to get your timesheet signed early. So bear all of this stuff in mind when it comes to, approving payments, etc., etc. So those are some really clear, definable steps that you can take. Okay, so don't forget this stuff. So remember, track your time, report your work, secure approvals early, manage your money and have a great relationship with your accountant, and optimize your business the best way possible with certain tools to help you do this effectively. So hopefully this has given you what you need to better understand how you can position yourself. This isn't as applicable to the inside of IR35 Contractor, but although you can use some of the same stuff or principles, you could probably do similar stuff, to be fair, and it gets you into a good rhythm, just so you know where you're at. But again, the tax situation will be similar to, it's PAYE, so to speak. So hopefully that makes sense. If you want to see more videos centered around contracting, portfolio careers, independent consulting, then don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell. And as always, my friends, understand, reach, and expand. Peace.